Welcome to a sweet October studio vlog. This week we'll be workcationing in Virginia, overseeing some animal temp staff, roaming some plant stores, and taking in what a New York fall has to offer. Hi, Penny! This week I'm working from my friend's house in Virginia. Since my usual assistant Chow has the week off, Festo here will be assisting me. She is so soft and pretty, and she's a very close study, as you can see. Today we're working on some sketches for the Washington Post. It's for a series of articles with a Lily about various financial struggles women are currently dealing with in the midst of the panopticon, as well as various ways they can empower themselves. Penny is an important part of operations. Today she's my bodyguard against particularly aggressive stink bugs.
Me?
And cats, of course. After work, we went to Boulevard Flower Gardens. It has a really wide selection of indoor and outdoor plants. While online pricing has evened a lot of indoor plant prices, I can still get them at a much lower price point than I would normally be paying in New York. My friend checked out the outdoor plants for her garden while I instantly gravitated toward, well, yeah. Been looking for a Cebu blue for the longest time, so I think I'll take this one with me. I also picked up some tiny pumpkins to decorate the apartment with, and this tiny Hoya linearis, not to mention a few seed packets for my mom. Wow, this stink bug was really holding on for dear life just to check out my plant haul.
I don't have one. Oh, I do have one. Okay.
Yeah, but not the kung fu girl.
You can use it.
Why would you use that?
Why would you?
After that, we headed back for dinner, which my friend was kind enough to cook. I think she's a secret wizard when it comes to cooking, but she'd never admit it. Pasta here is actually the head chef, though. When it comes to taste tests, she's the final word. Penny is in charge of dishes. And my useless self is still working as everything gets prepared. Everything we had for dinner was up to Pesto's standards. Pasta is here to tell me it's time for lights out.
Okay, good night.
Are you doing stuff out here still?
No.
Okay. You mind?
What's this? Someone new has been added to our cast of characters today. This here is Sugar, a Dog City client of my friend's. She's been added to the bodyguard staff to guard against stink bugs. Sometimes she gets thirsty on the job and drinks the cat's water. She also has a few ideas who contribute to these sketches. In addition to my normal reading, this week I'm listening to the audio version of the New York Times article, Am I the Bad Art Friend? If you haven't read it already, it's a cringy article about a group of writers, one of whom donates her kidney to a stranger for purely altruistic reasons, and then proceeds to harass another writer in her group when said other writer did not congratulate her on via Facebook. Needless to say, shit ensues when said other writer writes a short story based on the kidney writer, and the kidney writer sues in court. Is there a moral to this story? No. It just serves as a reminder that people are crazy, and if one of your peers donates their kidney, make sure you thumbs up their post so that they don't proceed to tear down your career. I always feel like somebody's watching me. I'm almost finished with my work, Pesto, I swear. In addition to the Washington Post job I'm working on this week, I'm also working on some sketches for a collaboration with an animation studio. This one is going to be about the human connection with nature, and I'm really excited to see where the animators take this.
Take her back to figure out details, and she was so terrified.
After work, we took Penny and Sugar out for dinner at a brewery.
It's Mrs. Short stack here, you know? She's so small and low to the ground, she can wander off. Pumpkins are gonna taste like these.
The girls were very well behaved, even as we dived into our apps and pizza. Well, maybe it had something to do with the food after all.
30 minutes. There's nothing really on there that you can eat.
There's some spinach or basil. Not sure.
It's time for the morning security patrol. Each round of patrols concludes with a detailed inspection of the cat litter. One can never be too careful around cat poop. Also, there was something up with my camera when I recorded today, so if you notice bars across your screen, just know that it's not because you need to replace your device. Or do you? I'm finishing up 2 of the finals for the Washington Post series today. Come have a look for yourself. This series has to adhere to a particular color palette provided by the client. So if the colors look a bit outside of my normal palette, that's why. I didn't mention that I have a 3rd client this week for the Seattle Symphony. I started working on the final in Procreate, but ran out of layers, so I've imported it into Photoshop to work on. Sploots! Today's our last day in Virginia, but let's go antiquing while we're still here. Ah, nothing brings out my inner grandma like antiquing. It's just so interesting seeing the vast collection of artifacts from other people's lives. It's often weird and befuddling, and sometimes it's funny. Not to mention all the cool stuff you can find for cheap. There's something exciting about giving an old object new life. Check out this little filing cabinet I found. I'm thinking I can put art supplies in it. Maybe I can even clean it up a little and spray paint it with a fresh color. By the way, I don't think I'll ever look at marbles the same way after watching Squid Game. Turns out antiquing works up quite the appetite, so we headed next door for some biscuit sandwiches and donuts. The food was super rich, but well worth it for the taste. The coffee was lacking, but hey, it was only $1. Back from lunch, let's see what Sugar and Penny are up to. Well, this is going on their performance reviews. Costa, thanks so much for having us. Time to head back to New York. Back in New York, and I'm starting my day off right with an autobio comic by Angela Fanch. It's a daily 4-panel strip that follows her through her life in New York. I'm so glad I picked this book up at the Big Milk Zine Fair. Her art and comics are so honest and refreshing. Yes, I wore the same outfit twice in this vlog. I swear I washed it though. Today I'll be working on a second set of illustrations for the Washington Post. Whenever I work my Cintiq, I make sure to block out flat shapes before I even settle on colors. To do this, I use a combo of the brush tool, which I often have to undo, as you can see here, as well as the lasso tool and the fill. The lasso is way quicker than the brush, but I often have to clean up my edges afterward. Once the shapes are done, I can lean back in my chair a little and move on to color, which is more of an instinctive rather than formulaic process for me. I have a few errands to run, so I'm going to head to the city after this. Uh-oh, another plant store. Although I like that one, we're headed to a different plant store. Ah, yes, taking that curbside splendor. Here we are. This is my favorite plant store in New York. Every time I go in here, it's filled to the brim with plants and jazz music. Today I've exercised great self-control and bought only a candle. Just across the street is an alleyway that's filled with street art. I like to check it out every time I make it out here. After this, I'm gonna get a bowl of ramen and head home. Today I woke up early because a neighbor was loudly revving their car engine at 5 a.m. I'm definitely more of a night owl than an early riser, but I have to say, this is pretty peaceful. My mind feels a bit looser since it's still dark, so I'm gonna try and get some sketchbooking in. I thought I'd never like getting up this early, but it's kind of refreshing to get a head start on the day. My friend sent the new Nintendo Direct about the new Animal Crossing update. I haven't visited my island in over a year. Oh, let me show you the candle I got yesterday. The scent is teakwood and tobacco. It's a great scent for autumn and winter. It just wraps you in a warm, comforting fragrance like a thickly knitted blanket. I'm preparing my Washington Post illustrations for posting on social media while watching my friend Wenting's studio tour on Instagram Live. I'll link her work, which is so magical and community-minded. She also does these wonderful murals based in Toronto. At the end of her studio tour, they gave a few zine tours, and for a bit they spoke about a hypothetical bathroom zine.
Yeah, like toxic plant ash. My first thing that I brought, is it in, can you see it or is it cut off?
Hold it up a little bit.
Up a bit.
Yeah, roughly down.
I managed to finish my 2 other Washington Post illustrations, so here's a more detailed look. I'm happy with how the bark texture came out on both of them. The client palette was sometimes challenging to work with because of the amount of saturated colors, but I think I managed to balance them well, even with multiple characters in the second illustration. I also worked on this piece for the Southern Poverty Law Center about decriminalization and decarceration. So many figures in this one, which is why I've stuck to a pretty limited palette. Now to head out and meet a friend who's visiting the East Coast this week. We met in Williamsburg and grabbed some tea. After that, we visited Desert Island Comics, as well as a nearby plant shop that's home to both a parrot and a pig. And a giant 20-foot tall skeleton. We wrapped up Williamsburg after grabbing some noodles and headed to Manhattan, where my friend's hotel is. We stopped by a very under-decorated Oscar Wilde bar, but quickly headed outside because there were a few too many people. After this, my friend and I said our goodbyes and I headed back home. Today, Sammy and I went hiking with another friend in Sam's Point. Not only is the foliage approaching its peak coloring, but there are some excellent cliffside views to be had. Not only that, but a stone staircase was just completed when we visited, and the construction team allowed us to use them. They said they'd camped out in the cold, windy rain the previous night just to complete them. It was windy at the top, but well worth the view. After that, we headed to the Ice Caves path, but Sammy wanted nothing to do with the dark, steep spaces, and so we had to save it for another time. Sammy must have watched the film The Descent. Well, that's it for this week. Thanks so much for watching. See you next time.